The official practice matches are in full swing and it's not far from round one, and we are officially in a SuperCoach rookie crisis. The most popular rookie of them all, Jagger Smith, went down over the weekend. So we are here in the Lair, a special Rookie Bible edition of the AFL SuperCoach podcast, just for you to solve some issues. This is the Phantom speaking, joined, of course, by none other than my friend in SuperCoach Rookies, the expert of all experts in the cash cow field, Dan Batten. Welcome.
Good to be here. As you say, some of them are dropping like flies, but we've also got some other options as well that are coming into the frame. We've still plenty of practice matches to go, but yeah, thought we'd convene to chat some rookies as we love to do.
Yep. Now, thanks for taking time out from some fine work down there at the Geelong Advertiser, AFL reporter, all over the Bailey Smith Hughes. We'll talk about the team soon, but we are recording on Tuesday morning ahead of that Geelong and Essendon game, so plenty can happen from here. And also Rookie Bible, the full updated edition of the Rookie Bible will be out this week. The link will be in the YouTube comments section below. When it comes, we've got plenty of work to do though, Dan. Let's start off the top with some news. We are going to rank our best picks on every line to give the SuperCoach community a bit of guidance as to who to lock in, who to play on field, who to put on your bench, because we know the rookies are the backbone of any good SuperCoach team. But let's start with some news, Dan. Jagger Smith, we know, out for the year. Plenty of other stuff going on too in the rookie landscape.
That's right. Yeah, it looked pretty innocuous, didn't it, on the weekend? Jagger Smith with a bit of an injury. The Blues downplayed it, and then, yeah, it turns out he's out for the year, which is a pretty significant blow. We're all banking on him to be part of our midfields. He already averaged 100 points last year in the VFL in his 3 games there, and it was just a ball magnet in at every level he played. So that certainly is a blow. But as I alluded to, there's some SSP signings that have come in that might prove to be. That's it. That's right. That's what we want, the bargain basement. And in the midfield in particular, I think one of the things that can save us as well with Jagger Smith is there's a lot of options, which we'll get to, around that sort of 190K bracket.
Yep.
So I think there is an easy sideways there to a few different options, but there were a few SSP signings over the past week. Is there any that have taken your fancy, Phantom?
Well, it is good for SuperCoaches. Maybe Andrew Dillon and the head honchos out the AFL do play SuperCoach, not AFL fantasy like most of Australia. They've opened it up for us, opened it up for the clubs, and it's seen Jai Cully land at the Demons. We thought it was going to happen last month or a few weeks ago. Didn't happen. Obviously, the former Eagle is now officially a Melbourne player and officially in SuperCoach, down 163K, hot off the press, 163K mid forward, which does bring him right into the conversation. We know he's had the taste of senior action. He's had the taste of AFL footy. If he can push his way into that Demons side, he's one that I'm watching, given he's probably more ready than some of these other names that we've seen potentially. What do you think? A few 99Kers in, as we mentioned. We love the 99Kers in SuperCoach this season. We've got a few more.
That's right. Sandy Brock, 99K defender, key defender, was the Suns for a couple of years. West Coast, he's probably not so much in the frame. Will White was picked up yesterday as part of the SSP reopening, as you alluded to there. Yep. For Carlton, he averaged 69 points in the VFL as a sort of a half forward type, but you'd think he's probably a little bit outside that frame, the Carlton forward mix as well. I do really like Cully. I was waiting to see his price come in, and 163 is quite good. He was 193K last year and didn't play a game, obviously coming off. Actually, no, he played 2 games, sorry. No, 3, 47, 22 and 61. So not amazing scoring there, but he did average 62 from his 4 games in 2022. And he's that bigger-bodied midfielder, 194 centimetre, can play up forward as well. I think it's worth watching him over the practice games. But the one I'm really big on from the D's, a recent SSP pick. We love the Werribee production line. It's done as well in the past. Obviously, Sean Manor last year. Sean Manor handed the Norm Goss medal to Jack Henderson last year, best on ground in the VFL Grand Final. Has 5 averages of over 90 in the state leagues under his belt, averaged 109 points last year and posted 151 points in that VFL Grand Final display. He's available as a mid only, 99K. But the words of Jason Taylor, Melbourne recruiting manager, I think was music to SuperCoach's ears, saying that he thinks he can play that Alex Neil-Bullen role already. Obviously, Neil-Bullen spent some time in the midfield as well last year. Jack Henderson's shown he can do that at state league level. I think he's a big watch. He had the choice between Melbourne and West Coast in the supplemental selection period, and went with the D's, obviously playing Werribee. But I think that's a sign as well that he would have been a walk-up start probably at the Eagles, or more chance of games. He must think he's a pretty decent chance of playing at the D's to choose them and choose less years on his contract. So I've got a big watch on Jack Henderson, especially when we don't have too many cheaper mid-rookies available.
Yep, and Captain Max Gawn has come out to Jay Clark of Code Sports, and the Herald Sun did a piece with Max Gawn on Tuesday, and then Gawn admits, they became two the same in the midfield. They were worked out. Their 3-man midfield was worked out. They're trying to broaden, increase their depth in that. And we saw in the practice match, we'll get to a little bit, Harvey Langford on the inside a little bit, Xavier Lindsay on the outside as well. So there's a few names to go through there, and they might share it around a little bit more, which is going to be good for some of these names. We talk about hopefully some more opportunity, but there is a game on Tuesday night, and the news isn't so great for almost a guy we pinned our Supercoach rookie hopes on way back when Team Picker opened. It was almost the most popular selection. Saad El Houli from the Bombers. Dan won't play. Where is he? Won't be coming down your way to Cap Park.
Well, actually, he will be. He's playing in the VFL game. Saad El Houli, I believe it's pronounced. Ben Waterworth, a big Supercoach fan. He was commentator. I think that was how he pronounced it. But yeah, the mid-season pick from last year is named as an emergency in that side. One who we'll get to, I think Tom Edwards has been named for Essendon. He was another of those supplemental selection period picks. Kicked 4.5 last week in their first practice game. 99K forward there, 24-year-old. So we love that. Connor O'Sullivan named as well, 146K. And my man Mitch Nevitt named in the centre, 149K there. No Bailey Smith, obviously he'll be managed. They still think he'll be right for opening round though. But yeah, interested to see a few of those guys tonight and how they go. Lewis Hayes, another one as well, named at centre half back. Young key defender, and Zach Reid, who is a cheap defender again after obviously getting injured early last year when we all had him.
Yep, if you're not watching or you haven't already, Code Sports YouTube channel, see the excitement in Dan Batten's eyes when he mentions the name of Mitch Nevitt. We'll get to him in the midfielder rankings of the show, but you spoke about a few names in defence. Maybe it's not all bad in defence. Let's start there. Top 5 defender rookies. Now, taking into consideration price, potential output, job security, we're not just picking the most talented guys here. What have you got for us? No Saad. Who's at number 1?
It's certainly slim pickings, but our producer, I think his eyes will line up when I say number 1. Bo Allen from West Coast, 136K.
He's happy. I can see him.
I've got Caleb Smith at 2 from Richmond. Number 3, Zach Reid from Essendon. 4, one we pitched our hopes on earlier in the year, Toby Travalia, but I think it's a bit of a wait and see about his job security. Yep. And Ben Patten, potentially cousin, maybe nephew of Al, Supercoach forefather, at 5. He's a def forward and 133K. Is there any you throw in more you throw into that mix?
Yeah, Travalia is the interesting one. I put out my rankings only sort of a week and a half, 2 weeks ago online. Had him at number 1. Joey Montagna, the new Supercoach ambassador, delivered some mail that Supercoaches didn't want to hear or didn't want to believe on a podcast a couple of weeks ago on the Code Sports YouTube channel. But he was right. Travalia sat on the bench to start that practice match. Came on, played well in the final quarter, kicked almost the sealer of that game. But he's coming down. Obviously, as we've mentioned on shows and previously before, that could all still change. Ross could still pick him for the Amy Series game when he's back in the spotlight. But I agree, has to come down those ranks. But Dan, one I want to throw in. Now, James Leake from the Giants, a similar story, maybe on the surface in the practice match against the Swans, the unofficial match simulation. Didn't play the first 3 quarters in the full strong sides. Came on, played 1 quarter when it was televised at the end, but then they played 3 more quarters off camera. They finished, they played a longer game, and the Giants did praise him on the club website and say he did put his foot forward to push his case for selection early in the season, which is what we want to hear, because 119K, he came to the club as a tall utility to play at either end, but pushed into the midfield in the VFL last season. A good stint, 27 disposals, 113 Supercoach points in a 6-game stretch on ball. And he matched up against Tom Green over summer in the midfield too. And Tom Green's out, won't play the start of the season. So that's where I'm hoping he stays in there. What are your thoughts on Leake? Am I being too hopeful?
Yeah, the only reason why I had him off that list was job security, really. And we can read too much into the A side, who's in the scene. I think we'll know a lot more after their final practice game. And I think the good thing is with GWS rookies and all those rookies playing in opening round, we can get a look at them in opening round. If James Leake goes bananas and scores 90 in the midfield, we can go with him. So I think it's a big watch over the next fortnight to see how he goes in the community series. If he gets much of a run, and then if he's in for opening round, we can keep our eyes peeled again. So I do like him. His draft year was a great interceptor and also had an impact up forward as well. But yeah, there was always that potential he could move into the midfield. But yeah, it might come into fruition in his second season. Just to allude to discuss more of those guys in depth. Obviously, Bo Allen probably looks like the best option now. We were thinking Toby Travalia was probably even last week I would have agreed with you that Toby Travalia was the top option. But now after Lee Montagna's comments and seeing him only play that half on the practice game, it's probably got to be Bo at number 1. Who else have they got back there? Obviously, they've moved Ruben Jimby there, the Eagles. But Bo Allen, I think, can have that immediate impact. He's already played a season at waffle level as well and uses the ball well and can intercept. So I think he is ready to go. Zach Reed is the other one I want to ask you about.
Yep.
Looks like a pretty low floor, but it seems like his job security is rock solid, which is you can't say really for the rest of the defenders who are available. Will you be picking him as a bet on your bench spot?
I think so. If he's named, if Brad Scott picks him and he's fit, which Brad Scott will pick him if he's fit. The Bombers do love him. We know we saw happen last year. Big if. What did he last 30% of the game? Not even in the first game of 2024. So, but I think we'll pick him on the bench. It's all getting it together. Pick him. If something goes wrong, we all got to pivot. But it is good a bench pick. So let's just wait and see, because we know he's a good user of the footy, a great user of footy, in fact, for his size as well. So can do a lot, just needs to stay on the park. So fingers crossed for him, and fingers crossed for Supercoaches as well. But Ben Patten, quickly before we move on to the midfielders, we're hoping maybe heading in to this season after last year's draft that someone like Riley Bice, mature ager from the VFL, might come in and take a spot in Sydney's defence. We love mature ages in Supercoach. Ben Patten is a mature ager of sorts, but not fresh in the league. He's been on the list before. He's done it before. you think he slots in back there in defence for Sydney?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think his job security looks a bit better than maybe a James Leake at this stage, and he's a bit cheaper. Obviously, the depth forward status in 133k. It looks pretty good. He can lock down. His VFL numbers are actually better than I thought. He's done it before for us. I think in his first two AFL seasons, or his first time he was a rookie in Supercoach. He averaged about 58 points. He's averaged a season average of 61 as well. And in the VFL, he's shown a bit more ball use and being able to win the footy, averaging 103 in the VFL in 2023. So, I think he has the tools to do it. Again, he's another one we can watch in the community series and also in opening round, and just a few more that maybe are pretty close to Batten. I reckon Connor O'Sullivan is a big watch on Tuesday night against the Bombers. Had 6 intercepts and 19 touches according to their club website in their practice game last week. Was super impressive there. Everyone was talking him up. So I think he's a chance, but just does he fit into that Cats backline is the question. Jackson Pryor as well, a delisted Lion who spent a lot of his time as a sub at the Lions. So he's at 160k. And Lewis Hayes as well, the centre half back named. I'm not sure you could go Zach Reid and Lewis Hayes, but they have similar traits. They can intercept and also use the footy. But we should probably move on to the mids. How are you seeing the midfield landscape? Because it seems like there's a lot of expensive rookies there.
As I saw your team a couple of weeks ago, 18 or something, cheapies, 18 cheapies. You've got every rookie priced above 180k, but I'm definitely with you. I think there is enough there, even without Jagger, unfortunately. Even without Jagger, though, there is enough there at the top end bracket. But a guy I didn't think I'd have at number one, who's come into the number one spot with Jagger Smith going out, Elijah Sardis from the Bombers, 191k. He's moved in to the number one rank with Jagger Smith out. I've got your man Mitch Nevitt. It's moved up to number 2 in the rankings, named on ball for the game on Tuesday night. Did enough in the match sim, and I'm taking your word for it. If it doesn't work out, it's all on you. Number 3, I've had to shuffle around a bit. I was a bit sad not to see Neil Erasmus feature prominently in the recent Freo internal, but let's talk about him later. Nathan O'Driscoll, number 3 at the Dockers, a big waffle final series for him last year. Number 4, I'm keeping Ed Allen. I can't get out my head what Nick Dacos said about him. Going to be an absolute superstar. Number 5, got a tie. Tie for number 5, Dan. I can do that. This is the Phantoms Lair. I'm making up the rules. Levi Ashcroft / Sid Draper at number 5. Hard to split them. If they were both locked in and you could tell me right now they'll both play full games in the first Supercoach game of the season, they'd be well and truly in the top 5. A few question marks about both of them in terms of role, sub-affected, Ashcroft coming back from injury. So that's my 6, let's say. But there's a whole heap after that as well that could and might still come into that top 5 after the Amy series. What do you think?
One guy, my list was very similar. Of course, had Nevitt very high, had Sardis number 1, thought he was really impressive. It will be interesting to see tonight how much of the footy and how much midfield time he does get with the cavalry all back. Darcy Parish said to miss the start of the season, which does help his cause early. And he obviously another one we can watch in opening round to assess. And if he has an absolute stinker, looks like he's going to get dropped, we can look elsewhere with plenty of other more expensive options. But yeah, it is very fluid, as you say. Not many absolute locks who are cheaper options as well. So we're going to have to pay up a bit. Another guy I'm willing to pay up for, I think, after watching him in the match sim on Saturday is Harvey Langford. Looked like I thought he was playing a fair bit of forward line, but he was using the ball really well. But then the CPA numbers come out on Code Sports, and he's had 45% CBAs. So I think they're going to use him in the midfield. He's ready-made. He was a Supercoach beast at junior level, averaging 140 plus in the Coast Talent League, and he has a high impact game. It looks like he's improved his kicking a bit as well, which is a big plus because he can win plenty of contested ball and have scoreboard impact. So he's another one I have around that 180k mark. Elijah Hewitt I've got in my midfield just because there's limited options there.
Yeah.
I do really like Nathan O'Driscoll as well. It's just whether you can fit him in. Do you chuck him at a flex? And another name as well, Angus Sheldrick, who has done it before in Supercoach, had a big stretch a couple of years ago, couldn't find his way in, but with Luke Parker out of that side, he's another one who has a big contested ball tackle game, which is good for Supercoach. But again, the question mark is his job security.
Yeah, I've got Elijah Hewitt number one in my forward ranks, but if we were picking an overall list, I think he'd be at the top end definitely for rookies in general. We saw him play in the B team of the Eagles' internal trial over the weekend, but I think we can maybe not safely say, but we can say that probably was to give him a full run on the midfield. They've been talking good things about Hewitt and what they expect from him this year over in the West. So I don't think we need to be too concerned yet. Let's see what happens in the Amy Series game. Another one who falls into that boat, Neil Erasmus, who I did have in my top five a week and a half ago. Maybe a bit of hope or nothing, but it is time for Freo to give him a go, to rejuvenate a little bit. Massive in the VFL, the Waffle last year, more Supercoach points on average than any midfielder in the competition. Finished at 167, 172 and 181. A big finish to the year. Nathan O'Driscoll was similar, a big Supercoach finish to the year. He looks like potentially a better chance of taking that wing spot back that he had earlier in his career. Neil Erasmus needs to just break in. Had played a few games, been sub as well, hopefully get a chance. He's 119k. He's one we really want to come on and be picked and get a chance in the Amy Series because we love to pick him on the bench. Ed Allen is the one that's fallen away a little bit. Hasn't been spoken about a lot, but remember this kid, 94 Supercoach points, 21 touches on a wet night against the D's in round 24 last year. He was very good. We know the Pies are open to in a bit of a transition phase. They want to get some new blood in there. Craig McRae wants to rejuvenate his side, and hopefully Ed Allen is the one to do. 194k. I guess we have to be a bit more sure about these guys at the price, so it does make it a little bit more difficult. Sid Draper, Dan, we've spoken about him a lot. 5 names, Simeon Thomas Wilson of the Lair and the Advertisers, going back and forth on him a bit, whether he's going to be in there round one. Taylor Walker thinks it's a very good chance to be there in round one. Probably not going to start on ball. We didn't expect that from him, but might push in there. Could he be the sub? We know Matthew Nix isn't afraid to sub in and out his debutants, whether that's right or wrong. So I'll be watching very closely in the Amy Series. One who is ready, who has scored well against men too. Like you mentioned top of the show, Bo Allen's done it at the Waffle last year in defence. Sid Draper did over here in the sample. So if he's in, he's one that could shoot up the list as well. Yeah,
it's a really difficult one. All of these names are very similar. Like you could see a lot of them averaging 75, 80 if they have the role, but the role and the job security is the big question mark. And I think that's what we're going to see over the next week. Even a guy like Elijah Sarge, we're not absolutely sure he's going to be playing full-time midfield. I think Mitch Devitt's probably the only one where we're pretty certain on. The Cats have been very open with that, and all the signs are pointing to that. But the others, like a Levi Ashcroft, he's probably going to be playing forward. But I think if he's playing, I'm probably just going to pick him and back the talent in. He took the P155 in his VFL debut last year at all levels throughout his juniors. He just wins the footy no matter where he is. So even if he's a forward, I think he could easily average 20 plus disposals. So obviously Jack Henderson as well, as I mentioned. a massive watch. And with all these 180K guys, a guy who's 99K will be worth his weight in gold. So even if he's playing as a pressure forward role, I think that's a massive watch.
Yeah, I'd love to pick him on the bench. We'll wait and see there. But I want to ask you, we know you're a draft expert, coming to your own around November every year, but is Levi better than Will?
I think he's different. I think Levi. I think Levi probably has more tricks up forward. I'd say like Ashcroft's more your role goal midfielder. Levi probably has a few more tricks up forward, but I would also say that Will's probably more well rounded as a midfielder. Yep. So, but yeah, Levi. Yeah, I'm not sure why he was slid to pick 4 or 5. Obviously, it was fairly even top end. His national championships wasn't as good as it probably could have been. That would have really elevated and staked his claim as that clear number 1 pick. But yeah, I think Levi certainly over his 3 years, in my view, was the leading number 1 pick, not by heaps, but it was a very good top end pool. But yeah, it's I think the Supercoaches are really the beneficiary of that. The fact that he isn't 207K, and even a guy we haven't mentioned is Sam Lawler, obviously likely to miss the opening round with that jaw, but I'd still be a little bit wary anyway, even with the midfield time. He had very limited preparation last year. They'll probably be a bit cautious. He played a lot of forward time against the Eagles, kicked the 2 goals and had a lot of impact. But
he was good.
Yeah, I think there's probably better options for a bit cheaper. Even if he is getting mid-time, I think he might be a danger of being managed at some stage. And hasn't ever had a full preseason because he's been a gun cricketer as well. So I'd probably be looking at those other names that we mentioned over him, even if he is playing.
We had a few questions come through, a few comments on X, and it's about the Tiger Cubs and when they had that big haul last November, we thought this is Supercoach gold, but it might not be. We haven't mentioned as much who fits into that top end bracket as well. Josh Smiley, as well. Is he in your thoughts? We might see him a bit more. It's been looking good on the track at times. Where any other Tigers, is he going to come into our thinking at some point?
He's another one that has also sort of slipped my mind a bit. You miss 1 week and you're suddenly out of the conversation because there is so many rookies in that bracket. But I think Smiley, if he is playing round 1, I'm probably going to pick him. I think he's 194 centimeters, a big body midfielder. Showed at Coach League level, he was men against boys. And obviously, I think up against Patrick Cripps, it's know who he's compared to throughout his draft year. You're not expecting him to go great guns, but he has the body, I think, to be able to have an impact early. And we'll see with the hamstring whether he does get played early. He might be one that potentially, if one of these other guys don't come off, like a Langford or an Ed Allen or a Driscoll, that we can sideways to if he does debut in round 2 or does pop off earlier in the year. I'd be very tempted to start him if he's there, just because he has the tools and I feel he is a ready-made mid. But I guess that depends if other rookies as well really press their claims in the next week and a half.
Plenty of names there. Hopefully we get to find out a bit more about them over the next week or so, and hopefully they do become legitimate options in Supercoach, especially the ones at the bottom end. As usual, though, like every year, there isn't a lot of names in the ruck, but some good ones.
There is, yeah. So really the 2 clear standouts by the length of the Flemington straight is Harry Boyd at St Kilda and Liam Reedy at Fremantle. Harry Boyd played pretty much number 1 ruck in the practice game on Saturday, and he's never going to be a high hit-out guy. He's only 196 centimetres, but what he can do is become an extra midfielder around the ground and follow up. And I think that's key to Supercoach. We've seen Tristan Cherry dominate the Supercoach scoring system with that sort of game. And I think if he's even playing as a backup ruck to Rowan Marshall, obviously Rowan Marshall in doubt for round 1. But even if Harry Boyd is playing at centre-half forward, I think we've just got to pick him on the bench. Liam Reedy's another interesting one. I've had him in my flex over the past week, sort of chopping and changing a bit. Sean Darcy, he's slated to come back after a big preseason, had a little ankle clean out, and is expected to come back at round 3 at the earliest, I think it was. But as we know, Sean Darcy's injury timeline is often up in the air, and it's often more than first feared with him. If Reedy is in round 1 and we don't hear any more update about Darcy, do you think Liam Reedy is too much of a risk?
It's hard to say. I think he's almost, if that happens, we almost have to. We've spoken about, ruckman, a number 1 ruckman is going to score. If he can get 4 or 5 weeks and maybe he starts and Luke Jackson just floats around like it probably looks like Fremantle want to do, then we might get enough cash out of Liam Reedy. It might be a train you need to get on. So a big watch and just work out how we're going to fit him in. Harry Boyd, I agree with you there. Over here in the sample, I think 4 Supercoach double tons over the past 2 seasons. Dominated last year, dominates around the ground, as you mentioned, might get beaten at times, his hands to the ball in the ruck, but can do enough else. So, but with both of them, if these guys are number 1 ruckman at their clubs, even for a few weeks, wait and see what happens with Rowan Marshall. Then these are money trains we need to get on. And even if Boyd had a couple of weeks and then, like you said, then just playing forward and pinches might be enough anyway, because if he has one big week, depending on what Marshall does for the first game. So I like both of them, and we might just have to get them both in if it works out the way we think it's going to work out. But not a lot else, as usual, below that.
That's right. And with Reedy as well, just see some of his numbers last year in the Waffle, averaged 117 points, 46 hit-outs, only 11 to advantage, so not a great hit-out tap ruckman, but 12 disposals, 5 tackles as well. Averaged 142 in his final 7 games, so had a really strong finish, and he ended up earning a spot. They decided to go with 2 rucks, and it seems like that is the plan early days. But in that practice game, or in the Indigenous All-Stars game, rather, where we had Supercoach points, Reedy only scored the 55, and he was coming up against a second-year ruckman in Colin Livingston, who is very raw. So not exactly a ringing endorsement. Neither is his. He's got 32 and 55 in his 2 scores last year. So it's not strong numbers. But as you say, we've had number 1 rucks at 130k before, and they've come off like a Mark Pitnet, etc. It's probably bit of a different story with Reedy, with his long-term job security questionable, and also the fact that he's probably more of a split with Jackson, probably a 60-40 rather than 80-20. But I think I'd be very tempted to start if he's in, and if we get any more update on Darcy, especially if it's an extra couple of weeks. I think they could have some serious money-making ability.
But not at R2.
Not at R2. It's probably
R2.
No, we're not. I think it'd probably have to be a flex, or maybe an R3 if Harry Boyd isn't named. But Boyd definitely the clear standout. Well,
I agree. But if a rookie ruck, it looks risky, and at 123k, let alone 99k, doesn't look great on your field. You'd have to take a Rowan Marshall setback or something, and you knew Harry Boyd was going to get a good run at it. That's the only way we'd probably be starting an R2. But some other interesting mid-price options around in the ruck, which we have covered on the podcast and the vodcast across our channel. So get on there and check them out now. But let's finish off, Dan, with the forwards in Supercoach. I had Elijah Hewitt down there. We both agreed he was at the top end of the overall list. Who have you got? Who's your top 5 in the forward line? We know there's plenty of mid-price values, bargains galore in the Supercoach forward line for 2025, but can we squeeze any rookies in there on field? Is there enough to go on? Who have you got?
I think there definitely is, but the other problem is, who are you giving up? Are you giving up a Riley Sanders potentially? We've all probably got a pretty cookie cutter forward line of Horn Francis, besides Al Payton, of course, Jack McRae, Bailey Smith, Riley Sanders, and Caleb Daniel. Were probably most of us, or some may not have Sanders, but yeah, it doesn't leave a lot of other slots for rookies. And this is actually a line that's actually looking pretty good, which is why I'd probably advocate for, if you're not going Reedy as your flex, you're probably going a forward rookie or potentially one of those 190k mids, because there appears to be a decent bit of depth here. Elijah Hewitt, number one. I've got him in my midfield. Sam Davidson, who I've been big on since he was picked up by the Bulldogs, number two. Tom Lynch, number three, which I'm getting more unsure of by the day. Isaac Kako at four, high impact and should play early. And Max Hall is probably one that's bolted a bit onto the scene. Lee Montagna pumped him up on last week's podcast, and yeah, he was looked to be in that first choice team throughout the preseason and also in that practice game as well. Would you have any others different in that list?
Well, you know what I'm going to say here. I think super coaches are going to have to answer the question of the small forwards: Joe Berry at Port Adelaide or Isaac Kako. I've got Joe Berry at the moment. Call my bias towards South Australia. Are you biased towards Victoria? We'll let the listeners decide on that. I think
Metro v Country as well. Vic Metro v Vic Country. Joe Berry, a country boy.
But he's doing a lot right, Joe Berry as well. Kako, can he get more of the footy? Maybe. But I think they've both got weapons and the skill set to score well off limited possession in their first year. So both legitimate options. Also got Dan Curtin, 158k in my top five at number 4 at the moment, behind Tom Lynch. I do have Tom Lynch as well. Don't feel good about it, like you said, but I think if he's there, last time he played a full season or 18 home and away games in 2022, booted 60 goals, averaged 94 points. So if he's there, it's hard to leave him out. But Dan Curtin is the interesting one. We thought the midfield move might be happening when preseason started and he was working with the Crows on ballers, but he looks to have found a spot playing forward in Matthew Nix's side. He's been one of the standout performers on the tracks. They're wrapped with him. The Crows were playing quite high, getting further up the ground and getting plenty of the ball. So I think he's probably almost definitely there round one. We're not going to get that midfield spike. We know he played in the midfield of under-18 champs in his draft year after playing in defence over in WA, moved to the midfield with good success and had some big numbers. We might not get that right away, but I think he can probably win enough of the ball, get involved forward of centre to have an impact. So 158k, he's in my lineup, but no SA flavour to yours.
Well, it's interesting with Curtin. Obviously, I think we were both pretty big on him in his draft year, and he's not your traditional 197 centimetre guy. He's a guy who can go into the midfield and probably play a half-back, half-forward role. But my concern is he's playing a wing half-forward role. He showed some good signs in that practice game against Port. But, yeah, I think there's probably, in my view, just better options, just considering his role. If he does go inside more, then, would definitely be a lot keener. But a guy like a Max Hall, who added a SuperCoach double ton last year in the VFL, mature age as well, has a couple, I think about 3 VFL seasons under his belt. Yep. And the Kako Berry debate is interesting because I was considering, obviously he's been declared a round one certainty, Joe Berry, and I think Kako is as well. But Kako is, in my view, probably more high impact per possession, as he showed in that practice game. Showed some really showed off his exciting traits. We saw that with like a Nick Watson, a Josh Rochelle in the past. These guys can get on runs and make quick money. Whereas a Joe Berry, he's probably more your link man. He might be more consistent getting you sort of your 40, your 50, 60 sort of scores. But I think Isaac Kako has that potential to go 80 plus with a couple of goals and off, say, 11 disposals. and he's so creative as well in the forward line. So yeah, I'm very tempted to start him. Like all the signs say probably not because he's a small forward, but yeah, I think the job security is definitely there. The other guy he was drafted as a forward, but his team might be playing more of a wing role with Sam Davidson. I really like him as a pick. He's dirt cheap. I think he's at 113k. Mature age, averaged 70 points in his first VFL season last year. And Bevo just loves playing these guys. He doesn't like playing guys in their actual positions, but he loves a VFL guy that he picks up, off the scrap heap and plays in a role. And I think Sam Davidson is one of those guys who's just going to run all day. We saw Ollie Dempsey, average really strong numbers in a half-forward wing role. I think Sam Davidson has the tools to play a similar role where he's running up and back, taking marks, and delivering inside 50s. So, yeah, I think that's why I probably have him so high. And a few others, there's definitely a few others.
Just quickly on Davidson, I've got him at number 2 as well. I think probably the easiest rookie pick in Supercoach. I think put him on your forward bench if you're just picking your team now. Slot him in there on your bench. Cheap, mature ager, won the award for the best young player in the VFL, which we know is a ticket
to
the big time. So put him on your bench and be done with it. A few other names, as you're going to say now, a bit less certainty about it.
That's right. Like Neil Erasmus, like if he's playing, it'd be hard to overlook him at 119k, especially if he's named in a midfield spot or something like that. But I guess he is a bit of a risk for, getting dropped or playing as a sub. Connor Stone, I think he definitely has the role there, off half-back, been recast as a defender after struggling to get in due to injury and also and probably, you look at that GWS forward line, it's absolutely stacked as well. 119k appears to be in their A team most of the time this preseason, but when the guys come back from suspensions, is he going to be a chance of being dropped? I think that's another one to watch, another big watch in opening round. And Tom Edwards, who I alluded to before, I've slotted him in on my bench more so to fit in some other guys, which probably isn't the right strategy. You probably should be looking to pick the rookies first and then everywhere else. But, as you do, you're playing around a bit in the preseason. And I think he averaged around 75 points in the waffle last year, showed he can have a high ceiling. And if he can have a similar impact like he did last week with 4 goals and a half, I think with his overhead marking, contested marking, and ability to hit the scoreboard at 24 years old, I think he's certainly one to really keep in your plans.
Yep, there are plenty of names there. Just a couple of the questions from X to finish off at the Phantom SC for our rookie expert, Dan Batten. Will stay in the forward line. Haydn Johnson, a mature ager. Another one from the VFL for the Ds. Are we going to see him? We pinned our hopes on him a little bit after the draft for Supercoach, but is he going to feature, do you think, early in 2025?
It was interesting. I was watching that game and he was spending some time in the ruck, which I think is obviously promising for his scoring. And that's what Jason Taylor said on draft night, that he would be able to play as a backup ruckman at 193 centimetres. Looks like it might be between him. They might be picking 2 of him, Dan Turner, and Matt Jefferson, who is an uncapped third-year key forward. Who's 119k, who's probably one to keep an eye on, but he's probably lower on our priority list than, say, an Haydn Johnson. I don't think you could pick him with any confidence, but if he is named, he'll be hard to overlook, especially if he is getting that ruck time and if he does show some more signs in that second practice game.
Plenty to look forward to. A big week coming up for Supercoaches and the rookie landscape. Hopefully we've covered off a few names there to get you started, build the foundation of your Supercoach team. We know the cheapies are the key, and we might have to reconvene, Dan, later ahead of round 1 and the first game in Supercoach to see who we've locked in once we've got some more data. But of course, the Rookie Bible link below if you're watching on Code Sports YouTube right now. A big week, Dan. Thanks for joining us. Good luck down at Cardinia Park tonight.
Great to be here. Hope I didn't bore too many people with all those junior numbers. Not too many sample under 18 numbers, which shows, perhaps that the competition isn't as highly rated as the Coach Talent League.
Oh, we just got it in his SA bar. We're going to have a separate show for the SA under 18 numbers. But no, we love the
with
numbers.
The donkeys on the field. As
it is. Someone just popped up on X as well and said, what's the crisis? What's happened? What's the emergency? On the surface, it might look like a bit of trouble with some key names going down there. But as we've discussed on the show, there are some good options to consider as well. And hopefully we learn a bit more about it. Keep a keen eye and open mind to the rookies and see what plays out over the next week. And we'll be back before the season starts for another edition of the Rookie Bible here on the Phantoms Lair. Until then, enjoy the footy.